Hi, Linda Sessions here, and welcome to week 2 in business communications. Now, in week 1, you looked at some grammar and mechanics of writing and introduction to business communications. And here in week 2, we're going to dive a little deeper into team and interpersonal communications, as well as communicating across differences. So let's jump right here into Canvas and look at week 1 in I did just send out a text, or you might have received an email either to your personal email or to your WSU Tech email telling you to check and make sure that you got the assignments completed. The discussion board is due Saturday night. I do attendance on Sunday, so if you haven't done that discussion board, you might be counted absent when I go in to do attendance. So make sure you get that discussion board done before Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Now, if you're not sure what you've turned in, over here, I'm going to switch to a student view here for a few minutes and look at the grades. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see grades. You can click here, and this is true in any of your classes. If your instructor has already put in your assignments, you're going to see them listed over here on the left. Here in the middle is the due date, and my due dates are all listed in here, as well as the scores. So here you've got the discussion board due March 29th, and it's worth 15 points. If you've submitted it, but it hasn't been graded yet, there's going to be a circle. And if it has been graded, you're going to see a score here. If you see a little like thought bubble type thing over on the side, that is a comment that I have made on your submission. It might be, welcome to class, great job, or it might be something else. One of my students is, a couple of you I think, are traveling between Wichita and San Diego. I think it says class. And we're thinking about going to San Diego this summer. So I talked to you about that a little bit. So anytime you see that, I've commented. And if I'm grading something and you had points taken off, I always put down why you had points taken off for it. So the discussion board, you need to make a post and you need to reply. Now, when I looked in today, some of you have posted your thoughts, but you haven't replied to anyone yet. And so it hasn't been graded yet. I'm giving you until Saturday. So if you want full points on that discussion board, you need to make sure you post your thoughts and then reply to somebody else on that. Okay. Then you have the apply from chapter 1, learn it, and the practice quiz from chapter 1, as well as this grammar and pre-course diagnostics. Now the good thing is this pre-course diagnostic, you're not going to have to go back in and do it again. I just want you to be thinking about grammar. A lot of us haven't really looked at diagramming sentences since, I don't know, forever. So it's just a way to go back and pay attention to the English language, which is a very complex language. If you have any questions as you're working on this, please reach out and let me know. Those are all due by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Now, if something happens and you're not going to get stuff turned in time, then you need to make sure that you reach out to me before the due date. If you don't, you might not be able to, I might not grant the extension. So there has to be a really good reason, something why you didn't get stuff done. Working and going to school is not an excuse. A lot of you work and a lot of you go to school and have families, and you're still getting the assignments done. So make sure that you are putting the time in. Now, a lot of you do work during the week. I get that. And so the only time you really have to do assignments is on the weekend. Remember, when you're taking a 3 credit hour class, that means you need to plan on 3 hours during the week for the class, in addition to 6 to 9 hours of study time for that class. So for that one class, you should plan on 9 to 12 hours per week of work. Now, my class, I don't think it's going to take you that long, but it could some weeks. if it's a topic that you're really not familiar with, it might take you a little longer to complete the assignments. Don't wait until Sunday to start working on assignments. You're not going to be able to do your best work. You're going to rush through it. All of the quizzes are open book, but work on them during the week. Put aside some time in the evenings or in the mornings, whenever you can during the week, to work on the assignments. You can work ahead in this class. Just don't fall behind. Okay? Reach out if you have questions. So going back to the class, I'm going to switch out of student view, so it's going to look a little different than what you see. But I found that there are some things that I can't access in student view because I'm not a student. But here's Module 1 with the grammar, the discussion board, the reading is here. You've got the link to the textbooks, and then you've got the quizzes. Now, the quizzes, again, they're all open book, so you can go back to the reading, and you can have the quizzes open. You can go back to the reading to help you look up answers. You can use Google if you need to. Here's flashcards to help you with some of the topics as well. In fact, let's come down here to Module 2. You've got the discussion board. You've got the checklist first. So if you click on the checklist, you can see exactly what's going to be happening this week in class, what's expected of you. On the discussion board for this week, if we click on that, we can see that this discussion board, we're talking about the medium. How are you getting your message across? Now, I want you to explore the various communication mediums that are available to you. Now, I list 4, but look, choose at least 2. You only need to choose 2 of these. You don't have to discuss all 4 of them, but I want you to discuss 2 of them. What do you think about how important is it to consider your audience when you're communicating? What's important about digital communication? What do you need to know about digital communication, technology's role? What about the complexity of message? How does that change what medium you're going to use, as well as the cultural considerations? I know in my HOA, I live in a very large HOA, and they tend to do everything on Facebook. The problem is, I've got a lot of older people in my HOA who don't get on Facebook, so they don't get the information. And so a lot of that information doesn't get out there to them. How should they be getting the information to the members of the HOA? I mean, Facebook really isn't working. Instagram isn't going to work. Texting isn't going to work. So what should they do? You need to consider, again, your audience and the culture of your audience. What's their makeup? Okay. So in your workplace, how do they prefer to get information across? My workplace prefers our school email. That's how they get stuff across. Some workplaces prefer texting. Okay, so they're going to text you on your phone. Different things to consider. I want you to talk about at least 2 of these in this discussion board. Come back to the class here. I'm going to talk about the team and interpersonal communications, and this is how I suggest that you look at the classes. First, you pull up the flashcards. The flashcards are going to go over the terms and the things that you need to understand for the class. Once you've looked at the flashcards, then click on this read and go in and look at the textbook. Wow, I want you to read the textbook. Would have thought, at least go in and review it, okay? Set aside 30 minutes to look at your textbook. So you're going to come in here, and it links right to Chapter 2. It's going to talk about the work team, what types of teams they are, the accountability that teams are going to have, or what ethical dimensions you need to think about. What about a virtual team? How many of you guys all do virtual meetings? We still do a few virtual meetings because we've got 3 different campuses, and sometimes it's easier just to meet on Zoom than it is for us to all try to get together on one campus. How about writing if you're working in a team? You've got your business meetings, nonverbal communications. So when you see my office and you see my background, is that real professional? This is me, very definitely me. Everyone I work with know it's me. I love doing my videos at home because it helps you to see me. I love ducks. Ducks make me smile. But if I'm doing a more professional communication, I'm probably going to blur my background, or I actually have a green screen. I can pull it down to make an office setting background. I'm not going to wear a baseball hat. I might wear my duck earrings just because that's kind of my brand, my personal brand. But this is all nonverbal. Okay? You've got to think of those things, and especially if you're doing Zoom communications, okay? But nonverbal communication, listening, how do you listen? Okay. So there's a chapter review, which is really good, and then they also talk about, there's some different messages. Now, this textbook was written before, I think it was last year's when it was published. So there are going to be, like here, Cam and Action deciding whether to move Black Lives Matter messages. This is not meant to be a political class. I'm going to get that across right now. It's talking about communication. So how are they deciding whether to remove those messages or not? That's what this review is all about. Okay. So once you've looked through the chapter, you're going to come back here, and now you've looked at the chapter, and you can leave the chapter open. You can see right up here, I still have it open. And now I've got my Learn It quiz. And it's multiple choice. It's worth 18 points. Once you've learned it and completed that quiz, now I want you to apply it. So Learn It is going to be basics. When you apply it, it's going to give you like a scenario. And which of the 4 questions is going to be the answer for that scenario based on your reading. Okay? And then you've got a practice quiz, which is going to be similar to how your midterm exam is set up going into week 4. And then we're going to go to chapter 3, communicating across differences. So if I click on that, you're going to click on that, and it's going to talk about how do you communicate with people who are different than you, like RHOA. How do I communicate with somebody who is 90 years old compared to how am I communicating with somebody who's 20 years old? Or do I do it the same? This one is talking a lot about looking at your own culture and identities and your views and how you are using those to get your information across. What makes you comfortable? What makes you uncomfortable? And how do you get that across in the setting? What about conflict? If you're in a room and you can go in, you're like, oh my gosh, I know there's going to be some issues in this meeting. We went to an HOA meeting and I'm like, oh I really don't want to go. I'm so glad I'm not the one in charge here. How do you handle the conflict? How do you decide whether to engage in conflict or whether to sit back? And if you do decide to engage, how do you do that productively? Because there's good ways and there's bad ways, right? A difficult conversation, like if you need to go tell somebody that they need to not wear that outfit to work, or maybe you need to fire somebody. How do you have that difficult conversation with somebody? I'm going to offer you some tips. Now this improve inclusivity and belonging. The way I look at this is you take your whole self to work. How do you, based on where you're coming from, like when I go into work and I know that I'm going to look at things different than somebody who is just married and just having kids. We're going to come from two different points of view. And so how are we going to work together to come up with the consensus for what we need to do? And so that's what this is talking about here. So talks about extravagant wedding plans. I've got a friend whose daughter's getting married, and oh my gosh, it's been fun listening to her talk about what she's been dealing with that. So yeah, man, there's a whole lot communicating across differences, right? So once you've looked at that chapter, then you're going to go back to the module. And now you have the learn it, you have the apply it, and you have the practice it down here, communicating across differences. So how do you communicate? As a team? Are you part of a team? Do you have a team? Do you consider your family a team? I don't know. And how do you communicate when you have some difficult information? How do you communicate if somebody is completely in a different planet than you are, right? So there's some tried and true methods in both of these chapters to help you with your business communication and your styles. So look at both of these, complete these chapters, do the discussion board. Discussion board's due April 5th, and then everything else is due April 6th. So make sure that you get all those done. Reach out to me if you have questions. Again, you've got some assignments. You're always going to have an assignment that's due Saturday, and then you're going to have some assignments that are due Sunday. So make sure you keep an eye on the due dates. I am here for you if you ever have any questions. Me and my ducks are right there with you. And have a great day. Okay? Have a good weekend.